Chapter 661. No, he had to restrain his dignity as the grand principal. Besides, he couldn't afford to offend the devil behind this girl. Thinking of this, the grand principal was stunned. What's wrong with your grandfather? Even with the power of the Black Field, you can't solve it? If Mingzun isn't free, I can go there myself, he said. Half a year to a year is too long. Normally, who would be like Luo Qingtong, who wouldn't go to the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin, even if they were admitted? Half a year to a year's leave? He hadn't even approved a month's leave, okay? The grand principal felt that Luo Qingtong was sent by God to test his patience. Only this little evil doctor dared to say this. If it were someone else, even if they were to take a day off, he would have given them a few tight slaps across the face and told them not to come back, okay? So I came to you to get in through the back door? Luo Qingtong looked at him innocently. In fact, it wouldn't be a problem for her to reapply to the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin, but it would be too troublesome. There was a ready-made back door here for her to rely on, so why should she waste the effort? Besides, it was meaningless to bully those students of the branch school. My grandfather's matter is a bit complicated, and it can't be solved by force. If it weren't for this, Luo Qingtong wouldn't have waited until now to discuss with the grand principal. She would have asked the people from the Black Field to bring old Master Luo back. It was just that the matter involved was a bit complicated. If she guessed correctly, Empress Dowager Yanxi had a deep relationship with her grandfather, and the entire Luo family. She couldn't use force before she figured it out, so she could only go and see for herself. Luo Qingtong couldn't explain it to the grand principal at the moment. Besides, this was the Luo family's private matter, so Luo Qingtong didn't intend to publicize it. She immediately said, "Anyway, I want to take half a year to a year's leave. Will you allow it?" "Yes, I permit it." The Grand Supreme Dean gritted his teeth as he looked at Luo Qingtong. This girl really had him in the palm of her hand. My God, what kind of sin did he commit? 1 year. I'll grant you 1 year. However, you must arrive within a year. You can only arrive in advance and not later. If you can do it, I will approve it for you. The Grand Supreme Dean threw caution to the wind. This girl didn't play by the rules, but he just couldn't bear to part with her. Okay, Luo Qingtong agreed. 1 year of vacation was enough. In fact, she had considered the possibility of an accident, which was why she had said half a year to a year. If everything went well, she might be able to go to the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin in a short time. I hope this girl will keep her word, the Grand Supreme Dean muttered. He reluctantly wrote her a suspension permit and stamped it with his own Grand Supreme Dean order. In this way, even if Luo Qingtong didn't go to the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin for a year, her qualifications as a heaven-rank candidate would still be retained. Luo Qingtong looked at the suspension permit in her hand and smiled. Thank you, Grand Supreme Dean. Humph. The Grand Supreme Dean looked at her and snorted. Then he said, Then you must go to the Pharmaceutical Institute when you come back. I'll leave the chief seat for you. No one will dare to say anything. He still hadn't given up. He wanted to lure Luo Qingtong to the Pharmaceutical Institute. Luo Qingtong was not interested in this at all. Chapter 662. Humph. You little doll, are you teasing me? Is there anyone in this world who is more talented than you, the evil Dr. Ghost Eye? She can already refine pills. She's still unwilling to go to the pharmaceutical department. How frustrating. She was still waiting for her to regain her face a year later. Don't worry, her ability to refine pills is absolutely shocking. Su Xiaoxiao's stability in refining pills was definitely the best that Luo Qingtong had ever seen. No other alchemy genius could compare to her. Luo Qingtong said as she called Su Xiaoxiao over. The latter appeared in front of Luo Qingtong and the Grand Supreme Dean like a little rabbit. When she saw the Grand Supreme Dean, her face was timid and shy. However, after seeing Luo Qingtong, she calmed down a lot. Grand Supreme Dean boss. She called out timidly, Little doll, the genius you recommended to me is such a little rabbit? The Grand Supreme Dean had already asked someone to bring Su Xiaoxiao's information. With one look, the corner of his mouth instantly twitched to the sky. A student from the trash class. The speed of refining pills was more than twice as fast as others. That was fine. But the problem was that the effects of the medicinal liquid refined by her hands would be reduced by half for no reason. This was really enough of a genius. The Grand Supreme Dean had never seen a talent that was more outlandish and trashy than this. Was this little doll making fun of him? Even if she didn't want to go to the pharmaceutical department, she didn't need to be like this. The Grand Supreme Dean blew his beard and stared. Luo Qingtong faintly smiled. Little rabbit? As a combat alchemist, Su Xiaoxiao, even if she was a rabbit that even wolves dared to bite. Luo Qingtong didn't refute and only said to Su Xiaoxiao, Xiaoxiao, the Grand Supreme Dean wants to see your refining ability. Luo Qingtong was someone who had been trained by herself, so she had absolute confidence. Su Xiaoxiao could definitely surprise the Grand Supreme Dean. And, although Su Xiaoxiao was shy, she was absolutely obedient to Luo Qingtong. As soon as Luo Qingtong finished speaking, her hands were already moving like a phantom. It was truly a dazzling performance. Su Xiaoxiao's hands were filled with an endless amount of medicinal liquid, which transformed into a series of mirages. Su Xiaoxiao was extremely sensitive to the medicinal properties of medicinal liquids. This was almost a natural talent. If it wasn't for the limitations of her speed and effectiveness, she would definitely be the world's most talented alchemist. However, after going through Luo Qingtong's guidance and training, she completely abandoned some of the principles of ordinary pharmacists. Since the concoction speed was slow, and the effect was low, she would use other medicinal liquids to catalyze it. She was still able to display an effect that wasn't inferior to that of an ordinary genius alchemist. In fact, because of her innate sensitivity towards medicinal liquids and the stability of the medicinal liquids she refined, it was even more breathtaking and surprising. At first, the Grand Supreme Dean didn't care. He didn't think that Su Xiaoxiao would be able to display any amazing ability. As the Grand Supreme Dean of the Holy Court of the Empire of Qin, he had seen countless geniuses. There were really too few that could move him. However, following Su Xiaoxiao's movements, his eyes slowly widened and then fiercely widened. The ability to mix medicinal liquids was simply shocking. The Grand Supreme Dean didn't know that there was actually someone in this world who could do this. My God! Just one medicinal liquid. This little rabbit-like student must have layered at least dozens of medicinal liquids, right? If it wasn't for the fact that she didn't have enough strength and couldn't control the majestic and vast power of the medicinal liquids after layering, it wouldn't be a problem for her to continue layering and mixing them. What kind of people were around this little child of the evil doctor? My God! Chapter 663. This. How did you do it? Seeing Su Xiaoxiao's almost terrifying overlaying ability, the Grand Supreme Dean instantly jumped up. Just by relying on the stability of this medicinal liquid, Su Xiaoxiao's so-called trash talent from before had been completely reversed. It was originally the trashiest and most impossible talent, but now it didn't exist in Su Xiaoxiao's body. What was going on? Did you comprehend it yourself? He looked at Su Xiaoxiao and asked. No, boss taught me. As Su Xiaoxiao spoke, she turned to look at Luo Qingtong, her eyes flashing with a fine and bright light. Boss said that if I can't walk the same path as others, then I should open up a path that belongs to me, so that others can't catch up to me no matter how hard they try. Because of Luo Qingtong's words, she, who was originally destined to be trash, who shouldn't have accomplished anything, opened up another path and became a combat pharmacist. Su Xiaoxiao had never thought that a person like her, who was determined to have no achievements in the future, would actually have such a shocking ability to refine medicine under Luo Qingtong's guidance after meeting her. All her glory came from the beautiful red-clothed girl in front of her, who was as charming as blood. Luo Qingtong was her life's greatest salvation. She was the one who told her how to struggle out of the mire, how to walk out of her own world. Boss is the most powerful. She nodded heavily. Hearing this, the Grand Supreme Dean's eyes instantly lit up. He didn't expect it. This evil doctor's ability to teach people was so amazing. Her understanding of medicine refining was so profound. That's right, she was an alchemist. She had already jumped out of the realm of alchemists. Thinking this, the Grand Supreme Dean felt stifled again. If Luo Qingtong was willing to enter the pharmaceutical courtyard, she would definitely sweep them all away. But this girl wasn't interested. But fortunately, having Su Xiaoxiao was already pretty good. This ability to refine medicine was already enough to show disdain for most of the geniuses in the pharmaceutical courtyard. Thinking this, the Grand Supreme Dean suddenly said, "All right, you Su Xiaoxiao, right? Follow me into the herb garden. You can choose any of the resources inside." If this little fellow was properly nurtured, he would definitely become one of his trump cards in the future. As for Luo Qingtong, the Grand Dean felt stifled and said, "Evil Dr. Little Doll, since you don't want to come to the medicine courtyard, then just come with the title of Honorary Chief Disciple. You can still get the resources, but you don't have to come to the Pharmaceutical Institute for classes. How about it? You can't refuse this again. Those resources will benefit the people around you a lot. It could help them grow quickly. Others can't even dream of it, especially this little girl. If she's able to obtain the various privileges and benefits within it, then it would simply be a great improvement to her alchemy strength." Before he could finish his words, Luo Qingtong had already said, "Deal." It was just a title, and he could get so many benefits. Why wouldn't he agree? Luo Qingtong just didn't want to waste her time in the pharmaceutical department. Since there were free benefits, she was naturally willing. However, "I don't want to go in with my own identity. Arrange the identity of Luo Qi for me." In any case, this old man just wanted her to go in with a title. It didn't matter what the title was. Luo Qingtong didn't want to attract so much attention before she even arrived at the holy courtyard of the Empire of Qin. She had even taken half a year to a year off. Chapter 664. With that thought in mind, she immediately said to the Supreme Dean. The Grand Supreme Dean had also considered this problem and agreed immediately. After all, if one of them entered 2 academies, and one of them was the honorary chief disciple, it would cause too much trouble. Although he was the Grand Supreme Dean, there were still the elders in the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin. It would be troublesome to explain. Moreover, this girl had to apply for leave during this period. It would be better to just use an alias. In this way, he could hide her and use her as his trump card in the future. While the two of them were talking, the outside of the Tianyu Empire was in chaos. Buzz! After Luo Qingtong and the Grand Supreme Dean left, the end-of-year examination ended. Instantly the steel of history lit up. Suddenly, a dazzling light shot up to the sky. A line of words appeared in the sky. The entire capital of the Tianyu Empire, and even the nearby cities could see it. A loud and clear voice spread in all directions. Tianyu branch of the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin, Luo Qingtong, Intermediate Martial King Realm. First place in the end-of-year examination. First place in the Steel of History. Accepted as a heaven-grade candidate by the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin. Forever engraved in the history of Tianyu branch. As the voice rang out, the words in the sky changed instantly. Instantly, a series of points and achievements appeared on the Steel of History. Participated in defeating a Saint Realm expert. Competed for the first prize in the Steel of History. Cleared 10 channels. Looking at the words that appeared on the Steel of History, everyone in the capital of the Tianyu Empire was stunned. Luo Qingtong, Intermediate Martial King Realm. First place in the end-of-year examination. First place in the Steel of History. Accepted as a heaven-grade candidate by the Saint Academy of the Empire of Qin. Forever engraved in the history of Tianyu branch. Participated in defeating a Saint Realm expert. Cleared the Steel of History. Cleared the Steel of History. Oh my God. Everyone stared at the words that appeared on the steel of Tianyu branch. They almost thought that they were dreaming and hallucinating. Luo Qingtong? Isn't that the fiancée of the 5th prince who came from a low-level country? Didn't they say that she was born mediocre and was not worthy of the 5th prince? What's with the announcement from Tianyu branch? Everyone was shocked. Everyone in the imperial capital of Tianyu Empire was discussing this matter crazily. What Luo Qingtong had achieved was something that even Yuan Ma hadn't achieved in his prime. Was such a person mediocre? Not good enough for Yuan Ma? Was this a joke? How blind were Tianyu's royal family, and UNMO, to see such a peerless pearl as a fish's eye. Looking at the words in the sky, the people of Tianyu Empire felt that the destruction of Tianyu Empire's imperial family was justified. To be so blind, if you don't die, who will die? No wonder they were so blind as to offend evil Dr. Ghost Eye. Previously, everyone thought that their sudden extermination was too tragic. Looking at it now, it was his own fault for being blind and courting death. Who could he blame? On the street, a young lady who used to adore the fifth prince raised her head and looked at the words that appeared in the sky. She couldn't help but mutter to herself, I used to think that the fifth prince was very powerful. Now it seemed that he was also blind. I really misjudged him before. With Luo Qingtong's talent and strength, the fifth prince didn't even notice it. It could be seen how much he disdained and ignored Luo Qingtong and the Luo family. Even so, he still refused to cancel the engagement. Who knew what his intentions were? In the past, the people who felt that the fifth prince was wronged, and that he was affectionate and kind to the Luo family, and Luo Qingtong now despised him. Chapter 665. Weng Weng Weng. After Luo Qingtong's name appeared, Ling Tianhan's and the others' rankings were announced. The names of the heaven-grade candidates stunned everyone in the Tianyu Empire. Oh my god, are they hallucinating because they're not awake yet? Forget about the previous Luo Qingtong. Now all the candidates behind her were heaven-grade candidates. 8 heaven-grade candidates. Everyone was dumbfounded when they heard the names of the heaven-grade candidates. What? Heaven-grade candidates were worthless in the future? Everyone had the same thought as the dean of the Tianyu Empire. They wondered if they remembered wrongly that Yuanma was the only heaven-grade candidate. Only those from the Tianyu branch who had witnessed the scene with their own eyes knew the truth. It was all thanks to Luo Qingtong that the Tianyu branch could have such a grand occasion, which was enough to be remembered in the history of the Tianyu branch. No one could surpass it. It was because of this girl that the Grand Dean generously gave out 8 purple notices for heaven-grade candidates. She created a record that no one in the Tianyu Empire could surpass. Those who had looked down on Luo Qingtong and the little tyrant Yuan and mocked them for seeking death in the end-of-year exam and deserved it were the Tianyu Empire students. Now that he saw little overlord Yuan and the others being engraved on the Academy's historical steel and spread in all directions with the light of the Academy's historical steel, he immediately felt an indescribable jealousy. If they had been kinder to Luo Qingtong back then, if they had been closer to Luo Qingtong back then, now would their fates be different as well? Would he also be able to shine brilliantly like this? Would he be able to break free from the ordinary and step onto the path to the heavens? The Holy Institute of the Empire of Qin. Everyone in the Tianyu Empire dreamed of entering it, but only 10 spots were accepted each year. Some people stayed in the Tianyu Empire until their youth was gone, but they still couldn't get a single spot. How long had it been since the little tyrant Yuan and the others entered the Tianyu Empire? They were still students of the trash class, but they were like carps that jumped over the dragon gate. Not only had he become a student of the Holy Academy of the Empire of Qin, but he was also the most respected heaven-grade candidate. All of their achievements were no less than Yuanma's. Their previous ridicule, disdain, and disdain for the other party. How laughable it is now. The person they were mocking was now standing at the pinnacle of light. He did not even bother to look at them. Buzz buzz buzz. Rays of light lit up on the historical tablet. Every time a line of words appeared, a voice would read out the person's information. Luo Qingtong came out of the Grand Dean's room and heard the announcement in the sky. She didn't need to leave the Tianyu branch school to imagine the chaos in the Tianyu Empire. A young girl from a low-level country had taken first place in the year-end examination, suppressing the glory of the former #1 genius of the empire. No matter who it was, they would find it hard to believe. The stain that had been splashed on the Luo family and Luo Qingtong had all been washed away. In the eyes of the people of Tianyu Empire, Luo Qingtong and the Luo family were no longer unworthy of Tianyu Empire's royal family and UNMO. It was that they were not worthy of being mentioned in the same breath as her. And this was only the beginning. The humiliation and disdain that Tianyu Empire's royal family and UNMO had brought to the original owner. She would return it all. UNMO. Wait for me in the Holy Institute of the Empire of Qin. Chapter 666. For the entire day, the entire Tianyu branch was immersed in great excitement and shock. It was only when night fell that it gradually quieted down. After sending off the excited little tyrant Yuan and the others, Luo Qingtong lay on the bed and rubbed the 9 phoenix ring in her hand. For some reason, she suddenly wanted to see Yi Qianxian. Thinking of how that man protected her during the day, and how he still transmitted his power to her even when he wasn't around, Luo Qingtong's heart stirred, and she injected her spiritual power into the 9 phoenix ring. She didn't know how to use this thing, but since Yi Qianxian could transmit his consciousness and power through this ring, she should be able to go over as well, right? As Luo Qingtong thought this, her vision turned black with a whoosh, and her consciousness appeared in an empty space in an instant. Luo Qingtong looked around, and found that this space was the same space in the 9 phoenix ring that Yi Qianxian had led her into before. So how should she go over to Yi Qianxian's side? As Luo Qingtong thought this, she tried to disperse her consciousness and carefully sensed this space. Soon, she felt a trace of connection, as if it was leading this space and another space together. Was that Yi Qianxian's ring? As Luo Qingtong thought this, she immediately shrunk her consciousness and spiritual power and swept over following that trace of connection. Whoosh! Her consciousness figure appeared in a black space. This was the consciousness space in Yi Qianxian's decimal dragon ring. Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes, and the corners of her lips curled up in an instant. The consciousness spaces of these 2 rings were indeed connected. If Yi Qianxian could find her through his ring, then she could also find him through this ring. She wondered if that man would be shocked when he saw her soul appear. As Luo Qingtong said this, her figure instantly swept over, and she rushed out through the exit of the decimal dragon ring's consciousness space. Yi Qianxian. She happily jumped out of the 10-directional dragon ring. Look, I found a way to find you. Are you surprised? You mean, are you surprised? Before she could finish her sentence, Luo Qingtong's voice was stuck in her throat. There was no other reason. The room was filled with mist. The man stood up from the bathtub and walked out. Broad shoulders, narrow buttocks, and a tight waist. The 8-pack abs on his lower abdomen were extremely attractive. His body was still dripping with water, leaving streaks on the ground beneath his feet. His long hair was wet and draped over his shoulders. It was as black as a waterfall and as smooth as silk. Coupled with the man's indescribably handsome face, which was like the most perfect creation of the creator of the world, he was both enchanting and charming, and also a little wild and unruly. At this moment, Yi Qianxian was preparing to put on his clothes. Half of his body was already draped in a black robe. One of his hands had already reached into his sleeve, while the other hand was raised. The view in the middle was wide open, revealing his lean and muscular chest. Especially between her legs. Oh my God! When Luo Qingtong came out, she was faced with such a scene. She thought of what she had just said. What was there to be surprised? What was there to be surprised? Instantly, Luo Qingtong's lips twitched. *T. This was more than a surprise. This was simply a shock. That. Can you continue? Luo Qingtong covered her eyes. Chapter 667. Bang! Yi Qianxian leisurely put on his clothes, then waved his hand. Luo Qingtong's body instantly rose into the air, and he threw her onto the couch next to him. Then the man's body, which was still hot from his bath, pressed down on her, firmly imprisoning her between his arms and the couch. This sovereign is very surprised, and I like this surprise very much. Yi Qianxian's voice was hoarse. He looked at Luo Qingtong with a fiery gaze. When he sensed that Luo Qingtong might be in danger, he had just solved a problem, and there was still the smell of blood on his body. He had originally planned to find this woman after taking a bath, to see what had happened to her over there. But he didn't expect her to come to him on her own accord. Looking at this little woman who suddenly appeared in front of him, Yi Qianxian's eyes were indescribably deep and solemn. You came to find this sovereign so directly. Did you miss this sovereign? Yi Qianxian's eyes shone brightly. Thinking that this woman might have thought of coming to find him immediately after being bullied, His heart was filled with indescribable joy. It was so full that it seemed like it was about to overflow. This woman had always been unwilling to rely on him, and would rather solve everything on her own. Now that she could think of him, even if it was already after the incident, did it mean that she was slowly starting to get used to his existence? Yes. I missed you. Suddenly being thrown onto the couch by Yi Qianxian, Luo Qingtong was stunned for a moment. Then, she narrowed her eyes, smiled wickedly, and wrapped her arms around Yi Qianxian's neck. But now it seems that Lord missed me more? Competing with her in sweet talking? She wouldn't lose. Luo Qingtong's breath smelled like orchids, and she approached Yi Qianxian with a devilish charm. The man's eyes deepened, and he couldn't help but lower his head. At this moment, Luo Qingtong's body suddenly shrunk with a bang. The originally evil and charming young girl suddenly turned into a cute little loli with 3 heads. Her originally overbearing and seductive action of wrapping her arms around Yi Qianxian's neck also turned into Luo Qingtong adorably, hanging onto Yi Qianxian's body. The sudden turn of events stunned both of them at the same time. When Luo Qingtong saw Yi Qianxian's face darken, she couldn't help but burst out laughing. Haha, I swear it wasn't me. As she spoke, in order to prove her innocence, she twisted her waist and raised her head to kiss him in her mini loli form. Humph! Yi Qianxian snorted coldly. He lowered his head and mimicked Luo Qingtong's kiss. The kiss that was supposed to land on his chin landed on his lips instead. At the same time, he opened his mouth and sucked on Luo Qingtong's little tongue. The cute little loli Qingtong was already stunned. This man, she was already in such a state, but he still had the heart to do it. Wasn't this taste a little too strong? At this moment, Luo Qingtong seemed to have forgotten that she had laid hands on little Ming Zun in the past. Fortunately, Yi Qianxian wasn't as unprincipled as she thought. He only bit her little tongue with a black face, and then let go of her. Your strength is still too weak to bear the full manifestation. Not counting the moment when she came out, Luo Qingtong's body shrunk. Yi Qianxian hugged the shrunken little loli Qingtong in his arms. Hugging the shrunken Luo Qingtong made him very uncomfortable. Although she was still fragrant and soft, Yi Qianxian still preferred the feeling of the original Qingtong nestled in his arms. Chapter 668. Oh, so that's how it is. Luo Qingtong nodded her head. No wonder she didn't notice anything wrong when she became smaller. So that's how it is. This was probably why the ring Yi Qianxian gave her automatically adjusted its size according to her strength. As Luo Qingtong was thinking, she heard Bei Qing and Feng Yu's respectful voices coming from outside. Master, you can go to bed now. Okay. Yi Qianxian responded in a low voice. Luo Qingtong then realized that it was already dark outside the window. So Yi Qianxian's side was also at night like hers? Luo Qingtong was curious. She didn't know where Yi Qianxian was at this time. Was he at the side, that elder you had mentioned? Or was he at the black field? As Luo Qingtong was thinking, she felt Yi Qianxian's figure getting up. The sudden feeling of being lifted into the air made her subconsciously raise her hands to wrap around the man's neck. However, Yi Qianxian's hands were faster than hers. When she moved, his palms firmly protected her. Don't be afraid. I won't let you get hurt. The man's voice was deep, as if he was talking about this matter, but also as if he was making a promise. Luo Qingtong raised her head to look at him. From her current point of view, the man's figure was tall and sturdy, like a god. Okay. She blinked her eyes, then nodded her head gently. She didn't know why, but the feeling of being lightly stung in her heart appeared again. So strange. Yi Qianxian carried Luo Qingtong out. Outside, Bei Qing and Feng Yu were already waiting for them. Master. Seeing Yi Qianxian coming out, the two of them habitually wanted to greet him. Then, from the corner of their eyes, they saw Luo Qingtong leaning on Yi Qianxian's chest, tightly protected by the man's large hands. In an instant their eyes widened. Oh my god! Evil doctor! The two of them stared at Luo Qingtong with round eyes. Seeing their surprised expressions, the latter immediately winked at them mischievously, then raised her hand to wave at them and said, Hi! Luo Qingtong originally wanted to give Yi Qianxian a coquettish look, but Yi Qianxian directly raised his hand to block her face. Evil doctor. Dumbass. Beiqing was completely shocked. He stared at Luo Qingtong, who was hiding behind Yi Qianxian's hand, and waved at them. Oh my god! Why is the evil doctor here? Feng Yu, on the other hand, reacted quickly when she saw Luo Qingtong's tiny figure. Soul, evil doctor, did you come here through the 9 Phoenix ring? He asked. Yes. Luo Qingtong pushed away Yi Qianxian's large hand that was blocking her, and smiled at Beiqing and Feng Yu. How is it? Are you surprised? Are you surprised? She had just said these words to Yi Qianxian, but in the end, she had scared herself. Luo Qingtong looked at Beiqing and Feng Yu's shocked expressions, and instantly felt a great sense of satisfaction. This was the right way to go about it. Yi Qianren's incident was an accident among accidents. It didn't count. Beiqing and Feng Yu looked at her, then looked at Yi Qianxian. Master, this? Beiqing's voice hid an unspeakable worry. It was really not safe for the evil doctor to appear here. There were too many people here who were against Master. If this strand of the demonic doctor's soul was damaged because of this, he was afraid that Master would go berserk, without regard for anything else. It's fine. Yi Qianxian's expression was indifferent when he saw Beiqing's worry. I won't let anyone hurt her. Moreover, she won't be here for long. Activating the dragon and phoenix rings required a lot of energy. With Luo Qingtong's current strength, even if she shrunk her body, she wouldn't be able to appear for long. Chapter 669. Yes. With Yi Qianxian's words, Beiqing and Wind Feather didn't say anything else. What's more, although the master's words were indifferent, there was a hint of joy in them, and these attendants could still feel it. Their master was actually very happy that the evil doctor had manifested herself to come see him. But speaking of which, the evil doctor was too fierce. They didn't think that she would be able to find the method to use the Dragon Phoenix dual rings and manifest herself to come see their master. It had to be known that those were not ordinary magic tools. When their master had returned to take the 10-directional dragon ring, he had angered some people. Now they were constantly thinking of causing trouble for their master. Luo Qingtong was carried down by Yi Qianxian. She lay on Yi Qianxian's chest, poking her head out to look. All around them were strange flowers and strange trees. With Luo Qingtong's eye technique, she could naturally see that each and every one of these strange flowers and trees contained an aura of spiritual strength. It was countless times stronger than the spiritual treasures that tens of thousands of people fought over in the True Spill continent. To put it bluntly, the so-called spiritual treasures of the True Spill continent were nothing but trash in front of these strange flowers and strange trees. And these strange flowers and strange trees, as far as Luo Qingtong's eyes could see, they were everywhere. No wonder it was said that the Blackfield's underworld revered never participated in the struggle for the treasures of the True Spill continent. In such a situation, it would be strange if Yi Qianxian took a fancy to the treasures of the True Spill continent. Was this the place that Elder Yu had mentioned? She didn't know where this place was. As Luo Qingtong was thinking, she suddenly felt Yi Qianxian's figure stop. Get out! The man's voice suddenly sounded out. In the next second, pung pung pung. Figures instantly screamed and flew out from the palace in front of them. Ah, the voices were charming, but they were slightly distorted. Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows and looked at the figures flying in the air. Yes, the gauze she was wearing was very good. What should be covered was not covered, and what should be exposed was all exposed. Some of them were even blasted out of the building while naked. The white glow on her body was extremely bright under the moonlight in the dark night. Is that your palace? Luo Qingtong blinked and looked at Yi Qianxian. Her voice was no different from usual, but Beiqing and Feng Yu broke out in cold sweat. Looking at their master's face, which was even darker than usual when he was furious, the two of them knelt down bitterly. Master, please don't be angry. It's our fault for not fulfilling our duties. These people were really everywhere. How long had it been since they left? He had actually stuffed a bunch of people in, and the evil doctor just had to bump into them. Looking at his master's ugly face and the strong murderous intent in his eyes, Feng Yu felt that he had to explain for his master. Otherwise his master would go crazy. Thinking of this, he quickly said, Lord Evil Doctor, please don't misunderstand. These people have nothing to do with Master. They were all deliberately stuffed in here. When he said this, he didn't know how to continue. Yi Qianxian had a special physique, the heavenly vein body, which was incomparably tyrannical. Everyone wanted to have him as their heir. Especially those people. They wanted his master to die, but they also wanted him to leave behind his bloodline originally. Under his master's ruthless methods, they had already stopped. Chapter 670. But some time ago, there was news that his master had a child outside, and it caused an uproar here. There were all kinds of people trying to give him women. There were even people who wanted to go to the true Spill continent. His master came back to deal with this matter. But how could he tell this to the evil doctor? Was he supposed to say, "Sorry, Lord Evil Doctor. We thought you were pregnant with Master's child, so we made a big mistake"? Feng Yu felt that if he really said that, his fate would be worse than being punished by his master. For a moment his voice weakened. At this moment Yi Qianxian's cold voice sounded. "Because you are pregnant with my child, they can't wait to give you women." Puffed. As soon as Yi Qianxian finished speaking, Luo Qingtong and Beiqing's Feng Yu almost choked. "Oh my God! Master said it out loud. He said it out loud." Beiqing and Feng Yu were both thinking the same thing. Luo Qingtong's eyes widened, and she looked at him with a dumbfounded expression. I. When did I get pregnant with your child?" Even someone as evil as Luo Qingtong was stunned by Yi Qianxian's words. "Have some shame. Have some shame in the way you speak. They didn't do anything between them. This man was stuffed with a bunch of beauties, and he blamed her. When I was in the Luo family, the imperial family of Tianyu told me." Yi Qianxian's expression was indifferent. "They said it's been 3 months. At that time, everyone heard it. If it weren't for this, Beiqing and Feng Yu wouldn't have misunderstood, and the news wouldn't have spread here." He lowered his head and looked at Luo Qingtong's belly. He raised his eyebrows and said, "So the child isn't mine? You have another man?" F***ck. Luo Qingtong hadn't cursed in a long time. Damn the imperial family of Tianyu. If she knew they were slandering her like this, she wouldn't have let them die so easily. Especially Emperor Tianyu's group. It was too easy for them. Luo Qingtong gnashed her teeth. She only knew that the royal family of Tianyu wanted her, and the Luo family. She didn't know that these people could even make up a story about her pregnancy. How much did they want Yuan Mo to be cuckolded? Could the royal family of the empire have any sense of shame? Luo Qingtong felt a little depressed. She then looked at Yi Qianxian and said, "So they thought that I was pregnant with your child. So they had all kinds of ideas about you and stuffed people into your side? If that was the case, then it was really her fault." Yi Qianxian narrowed his eyes. "My heavenly vein's body is incomparably powerful." Yi Qianxian didn't finish his words, but Luo Qingtong already understood what he meant. The heavenly vein body was incomparably powerful, and Yi Qianxian couldn't live past 28 years old. Those people obviously wanted to keep his children. If someone inherited his talent and physique, wouldn't that be the best way to control puppets? Moreover, even if they didn't inherit his powerful physique completely, it would be amazing if they could inherit half of it. What did those people think he was? A tool to reproduce? Were they so sure that this man was dead? Luo Qingtong felt a burst of anger in her heart. She raised her head and looked at the man's handsome face. She said word by word, "Don't worry about them. Yi Qianxian, you won't die." She would save him. Chapter 671. Luo Qingtong's soul did not last long with Yi Qianxian, and soon dissipated. Her consciousness returned to her body, and Luo Qingtong's eyes narrowed. She would definitely save that man. Once she settled the matter with her grandfather, she would use all her strength to increase her strength. She did not believe that the heavenly pulse constitution could not be saved. Even if she had to go against the heavens, she would save him. Luo Qingtong had been reckless all her life, and had never believed in fate. She only knew that no one could stop her from doing what she wanted to do. Luo Qingtong left the Tianyu Branch Academy the next day. She had already informed Little Overlord Yuan and the others. Song Cheng, on the other hand, had gone to the dormitory to look for Luo Qingtong, after she had settled the matter with the Grand Dean. However, he could not find her. He had only left a note saying that he had something urgent to attend to, and had left first. Looking at the note, Luo Qingtong frowned slightly. She did not know why Song Chung had concealed his identity as a saint, and stayed in the Tianyu Branch Academy. However, the latter had exposed his hidden identity for her. She did not know if it had anything to do with this urgent matter. Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong immediately sent a message to Blackfield, and asked them to investigate Song Cheng's identity. However, Luo Qingtong did not know if Song Cheng's name was an alias, so she did not know if they could find any information. After settling the matter here, Luo Qingtong rushed into the spirit ship and headed for the Chu Sacred Dynasty. At the same time, in the Chu Sacred Dynasty's imperial palace, in a remote corner courtyard, Elder Luo, wearing a eunuch's uniform, sneaked to the corner of the courtyard and whistled towards the sky. Instantly, a strong person wearing Blackfield's uniform appeared in front of him. Elder Luo asked nervously, "How is it? Has the news been sent out? Has Qingtong received it?" "Evil Dr. Ghost I has received the news, and ordered us to protect Elder Luo," the Blackfield person said respectfully. Someone who could casually enter the Chu Imperial Palace without being discovered was naturally not an ordinary expert. Although this Blackfield powerhouse wasn't one of Yi Qianxian's subordinates, he was still a Blackfield city lord. He was very close to Yi Qianxian, and naturally knew Luo Qingtong's identity. In fact, he was sent by Yi Qianxian to take care of grandfather Luo, so that nothing would happen to him. Her Excellency said that she would be here soon. The Blackfield powerhouse reported the information he had received regarding Luo Qingtong. "Huh?" Grandpa Luo was dumbfounded. "No way," he hurriedly said. "Didn't I tell you to tell her not to worry about me? I'll be fine here." Why did his precious granddaughter have to rush over? Thinking that Yan Shi and Luo Qingtong might bump into each other, grandfather Luo felt a headache coming on. What should he do? On one side was the person he loved deeply, and on the other was his most beloved granddaughter. If the two of them met, he didn't want to see anything happen. Hurry up and tell her not to come over. Her Excellency's decision, we have no right to interfere, the Blackfield powerhouse said in a low voice. Luo Qingtong was their future mistress. If she wanted to come, she could come. No one could stop her. Grandfather Luo looked at him gloomily and wanted to say something. Swoosh. Right at this moment, the expert from the Black Domain suddenly vanished before him. As if sensing something, Grandfather Luo shrunk his neck and hurriedly left. At this moment, a cold voice suddenly came from not far behind him. Chapter 672. Hearing this voice, Old Master Luo's heart instantly trembled. "No, I didn't." He shrunk his neck and turned around, looking at the corridor diagonally opposite. Empress Dowager Yanxi walked in from behind the arched door, surrounded by a group of maidservants. The woman's posture was graceful and noble, her right hand resting on the hand of a personal maidservant, the fierce look in her eyes not dispersing. That pair of phoenix eyes stared at him coldly. "You didn't." Yanxi sneered, her eyes sweeping across this remote and calm courtyard. "If you didn't, what are you doing here?" She received the news that he would come to this remote courtyard for a few days in a row. Looking at the corner where Old Master Luo was standing, the fierce look in Yanxi's eyes became even heavier. "This empress," said Luo Tong, "without this empress's order, you can't go anywhere. Didn't you come here to sneak away?" Old Master Luo's face was bitter. He really didn't. He just came to pass a message, telling his precious granddaughter not to come looking for him, so as to avoid confronting her. But he didn't dare to say these words to Yanxi. Just as he stuttered and couldn't say a word, Empress Dowager Yanxi had already waved her hand fiercely. "Search for this empress." The fierce look in her eyes was obvious. She wanted to see who was contacting Luotong in the Chu Imperial Palace. Was it Prince Ning's group? If it was them, Luotong's identity would have been discovered. Thinking so, Empress Dowager Yanxi looked at Old Master Luo with a complicated gaze. As the Empress Dowager of the Chu Imperial Palace, it was actually extremely dangerous for her to force a man to stay in the Chu Imperial Palace. Even if her people had controlled most of the Imperial Palace, there were still places she couldn't take care of. In this world, there were always countless loopholes waiting for people to take advantage of. Once Luodong's identity was discovered and used, what awaited her would be eternal damnation. So many years of planning, and planning would all be ruined. But she just couldn't send this man away. After not seeing him for decades, this man was so old. She thought that she would despise him, disgust him, and forget him. But she didn't expect that she would still love him. What right did this man have? He had clearly aged to such an extent. Back then, he had believed the words of others, and mistakenly thought that she was having an affair with someone else. He had caused the death of their child. It was clear that he had married a new bride after her. And the entire Luo clan was flourishing. Why couldn't she forget him? She still loved him. Even now, he was constantly trying to escape and hiding things from her. She still had to worry about him being used by others. She gritted her teeth and looked at grandfather Luo. The latter felt a pang of guilt under her gaze. I really didn't want to run away. He was just passing on a message. Shut up. Whether or not you want to escape, I will naturally investigate. The voice of Empress Dowager Yinshi of Great Chu was cold. At this moment, the people around her returned from their investigation. Empress Dowager, there are no suspicious signs. Empress Dowager, there are no traces of anyone else. A group of people reported one after another. Old Master Luo heaved a sigh of relief. As expected of someone from the Black Field. Good. Look, I really didn't want to escape, Old Master Luo hurriedly said. Then what are you doing here? Empress Dowager Yinshi of Great Chu looked at him coldly. Luotong, this is the Imperial Palace of Great Chu. If you don't want to die, be obedient and don't interact with any strange people. Yinshi still didn't believe that it was a coincidence that he came here. However, she still felt much more at ease after finding no traces of anyone. Chapter 673. I'm here to carve this. As he spoke, he took out something that he had stayed up late to carve from his sleeve. Didn't you say that you wanted a hairpin like this? Master Luo didn't say that Yinshi wanted him to carve a wooden hairpin like this for her. It was just that back then, he was young and frivolous, wholeheartedly focused on cultivation and his brothers, so he never fulfilled his promise to her. She was living very well now, so Master Luo didn't want to mention their past and remind her of those unhappy things in the past. But this was something that he had promised to carve for her in the past, so he wanted to fulfill that promise as compensation for the guilt he felt for her all these years. If he hadn't been obsessed with cultivation and forming a team, he wouldn't have neglected her and the child, and he wouldn't have ignored the ambitions of his so-called good brothers, leading to a big mistake back then. Fortunately, he saved the child back then. Otherwise he wouldn't even be able to see her face now. She looked at the jadewood hairpin in his hand. The color and style were all her favorites back then. She used to like the iris flower very much, so she pestered him to carve a wooden hairpin like this for her. She wanted the iris flower as the style, the green wood as the branches, and the willow moon as the jade. But slap! She raised her hand and slapped away the jade hairpin that Master Luo happily stretched out in front of her. With a slap, the jade hairpin was instantly hit to the ground by her, and then the woman's gorgeous golden jade shoes ruthlessly stepped on it. With the strength of Empress Dowager Yenshi's foot, the jade hairpin was instantly embedded in the bluestone ground by her foot. Luotong. Yenshi raised her head, looking at him with a gaze full of sarcasm on her beautiful face. Don't you know how old the color and style of your wooden hairpin are? You're still using something from decades ago to curry favor with this empress. Do you think this empress is still the Yenshi who hasn't seen the world? Do you think this empress still likes this kind of thing? As she spoke, she raised her hand to support the back of the hand of the maidservant beside her, and turned to leave with the group of people. If you've forgotten, this empress doesn't mind reminding you again. I am Empress Dowager Yenshi of Great Chu. The Empress Dowager Yenshi, the regent of the entire Great Chu sacred dynasty. The millions of miles of territory, and countless countries bow their heads. By my side, there is a servant girl who sweeps the floor. Even the hairpin on her head is better than the one you carved. Are you trying to humiliate me by taking out such a wooden hairpin? In the future, don't take out such disgusting things in front of me. Old Master Luo stood rooted to the ground as he watched her leave. There was still a happy expression on his face, but the light in his eyes dimmed bit by bit. He lowered his head and looked at the wooden hairpin that was trampled on the ground. He slowly squatted down. He wanted to dig out the hairpin. However, Yanxi had used too much strength, and the remaining aura on it was extremely strong. He couldn't move it at all. Old Master Luo stared blankly at the hairpin. At this moment, the voice of the Black Field powerhouse rang in his ears. Old man, do you need me to help you take out that wooden hairpin? No need. Chapter 674. Anyway, if he took it out, the person he wanted to give it to would not want it. Since that was the case, there was no need to take it out. He did not cherish it back then. Now even if he wanted to make up for it, there was no chance. Old Master Luo left with heavy footsteps. Not long after he left, a figure suddenly appeared at the place where he was standing. Looking at the wooden hairpin embedded in the floor, the person raised her hand. In the blink of an eye, the wooden hairpin was in her hand. The moonlight of the dark night penetrated through the clouds at this moment and shone on the person's face. She was beautiful, graceful, and calm. It was Empress Dowager Yanxi of the Great Chu. Her tender white hand held the wooden hairpin. She tightened and loosened her grip several times. But in the end, she put the wooden hairpin into her bosom and turned to leave. As he watched her leave, the expert from the Black Domain who had been hiding in the dark thought for a moment and decided to pass on the message. Swoosh. In the spirit ship, Luo Qingtong received the message from the Black Field. She opened it and instantly raised her eyebrows. TSK. Looks like there's a story between your grandfather and Empress Dowager Yanxi of the Great Chu. Little Pig jumped on her shoulder and looked at the message. Yes, but since it's confirmed that she has feelings for my grandfather, this matter will be easy to handle. Luo Qingtong said. She had never known what Empress Dowager Yanxi of the Great Chu thought of Old Master Luo. If she said she had no interest in Old Master Luo, she was also willing to place a life and death interdependence curse on her grandfather and use her own life to share the danger for him. But if she was interested in Old Master Luo, her attitude was indeed not very good. From the looks of it, there was probably some sort of misunderstanding between them. As long as this was resolved, there would be no problem. As for the difference in status between Empress Dowager Yanxi of the Great Chu and Old Master Luo, Luo Qingtong did not care at all. As long as the two of them wanted to be together, Luo Qingtong would definitely let her grandfather marry her grandly. Swoosh. Luo Qingtong steered the spirit vessel and continued to head towards the Great Chu sacred dynasty. After about half a month, Luo Qingtong's figure appeared in the holy capital of the Great Chu sacred dynasty. Lord Evil Doctor. As soon as she appeared, she released a signal. In an instant, a Black Field member appeared in front of her. It was the man from the Black Field, who was in charge of taking care of Grandfather Luo. Luo Qingtong looked at him and nodded. How's the situation with my grandfather? Everything is fine with the old man. Evil Doctor, do you need me to bring you in to visit the old man? Only people from the Black Field would dare to say something like bringing people into the sacred dynasty's palace. There's no need. I'll go by myself. You wait outside. If I need you, I'll call you. Luo Qingtong's eye technique allowed her to sneak into any place without fear. This time, she went in to ask Old Master Luo some questions. She didn't plan to bring anyone else with her. Yes. The Black Field cultivator responded respectfully and instantly disappeared into the air. Looking at his actions, Luo Qingtong instantly raised her eyebrows. A Saint Realm cultivator? That man was really considerate to send such a person to take care of her grandfather. Swoosh. Luo Qingtong's figure swept in the direction of the Great Chu Sacred Dynasty's palace in an instant. She did not call out to the Black Field cultivator. Chapter 675. Grandfather. In the Chu Imperial Palace, Grandfather Luo was sweeping the floor in a daze when he suddenly heard a familiar voice. He was so scared that he almost dropped the broom in his hand. Qingtong. Grandpa Luo looked around and saw his precious granddaughter waving at him from a corner under the eaves of the palace opposite him. Oh my God! Grandfather Luo's eyes widened as he stared at his granddaughter's beautiful face, that was as beautiful as a flower. He immediately threw the broom in his hand away and ran over to her. He looked left and right for a while, but didn't see the figure of the black field cultivator. He became anxious. You came alone? He lowered his voice and said, Nonsense! What was this place? The Chu Sacred Dynasty Palace. Without the black field cultivator, his precious granddaughter dared to barge in. Grandfather Luo didn't know that Luo Qingtong dared to barge into the Tianyu Imperial Palace when she was a martial general. He even cleaned out the other party's royal treasury. Now that she was a martial king, sneaking into the Chu Imperial Palace was a piece of cake. Grandfather, I'm here to take you back. Luo Qingtong looked at Grandfather Luo and carefully observed his expression. Hearing this, Grandfather Luo suddenly became hesitant. Tong, I don't want to go back. Grandfather Luo squatted in front of Luo Qingtong and said gloomily, Don't worry about Grandfather, I'm fine here. Is it because of the Chu Empress Dowager Yanxi? Luo Qingtong looked at him and smiled. Grandfather, you like her? Cough cough. Grandfather Luo's face suddenly turned red when Luo Qingtong suddenly asked this. Oh, you're just a child, so you don't know. He put on a straight face and tried to pretend to be dignified as he waved his hand. Anyway, I'm not going back. Grandfather is fine here. Hurry up and leave, don't be discovered. Old Master Luo was very nervous when he said this. He was afraid that Luo Qingtong would be discovered and something would happen to her. He was also afraid that if she got into a conflict with Yanxi, he wouldn't know who to help. Luo Qingtong looked at him and raised her eyebrows. She wanted to say something. Suddenly, a clamor came from the front. Assassin! Assassins! Protect the Empress Dowager. Hearing this voice, Grandfather Luo's heart skipped a beat. He immediately ran towards the back of the palace. Luo Qingtong's lips twitched when she heard old Master Luo's voice. His grandfather seemed to have completely fallen for it. Fortunately, Empress Dowager Yanxi of Great Chu was not heartless to him. Otherwise, this matter would be difficult to handle. As Luo Qingtong thought so, she instantly jumped up and silently rushed to the back hall, where the Empress Dowager was resting. Old Master Luo was stopped when he reached the square at the back of the palace. There was a pile of corpses on the ground. Empress Dowager Yanxi of Great Chu was surrounded by a group of maidservants and guards. Her face was flushed, not knowing whether it was due to anger or because of it. She coldly waved away the maidservant's hand that was supporting her. She pointed to the corpses on the ground and ordered, Drag all of them out. After whipping their bodies, hang them on the palace walls for public display. In addition, thoroughly investigate this matter. As she spoke, her body swayed slightly. Yanxi fiercely bit the tip of her tongue, barely managing to stand under the sharp pain. Now all of you, leave this place for me. Without my order, no one is allowed to enter. She turned and went straight into the inner palace. Luo Qingtong arrived at this time. Chapter 676. Grandfather. She waved at old Master Luo. Seeing that he didn't see her, she immediately transmitted a message to him. Come here. I'll take you to see Empress Dowager Yanxi. She's poisoned. The moment Luo Qingtong said that, old Master Luo, who was originally very unwilling to leave the square in the inner palace, immediately ran over to her. Luo Qingtong's figure flashed and instantly changed to another blind spot. Grandfather. She transmitted a message to call Master Luo over. When he saw her, he immediately said anxiously, Qingtong, what did you say? She is poisoned? His face was burning with anxiety, and he completely didn't notice the playful smile on Luo Qingtong's face. Yes. Luo Qingtong nodded. It's very serious. She deliberately emphasized. What? Grandpa Luo raised his voice in an instant. Then let's hurry over and cure her. His granddaughter is the evil Dr. Ghost Eye. She can definitely cure that poison. With that thought in mind, old Master Luo grabbed Luo Qingtong's hand and was about to rush into the inner palace. No. Luo Qingtong hurriedly pulled him back and said, I can't cure that poison. What? Even his granddaughter can't cure it? Master Luo looked at Luo Qingtong with a shocked expression, then said anxiously, Qingtong, don't joke around. How can his granddaughter not cure it? She's the evil Dr. Ghost Eye. Master Luo knew how good her medical skills were. Moreover, she could even save his cultivation and become famous in the Black Field. How can she not cure it? I really can't cure it, grandfather. Luo Qingtong looked at him and said seriously, she's been poisoned with the love poison flower soul burial. She looked at Master Luo's dazed expression and said, although I can't cure it, grandfather, you can. Luo Qingtong said and winked at Master Luo. How can I cure it? I don't even know how to. Grandfather Luo stopped abruptly. His eyes widened as he stared at Luo Qingtong. Love poison. He could solve it. It wasn't what he was thinking, right? Yes. Luo Qingtong looked at his shocked and speechless face. She didn't know whether to be happy or worried. She immediately held back her laughter and nodded. Burial of the flower soul. Although the name is artistic, it is an extremely violent poison of love. Luo Qingtong looked at Grandfather Luo and said word by word, if the poisoned person can't find someone to detoxify the poison within a quarter of an hour, he will lose his mind and become extremely insane. She shrugged and looked at Grandpa Luo. Grandpa, you should know that it's not that I don't want to help her. I really can't do it. Luo Qingtong had an innocent look on her face. This love poison can only work if it's between a man and a woman. That. You know, right? So, it all depends on whether you are willing to sacrifice yourself or not. Or, you can find a guard for Empress Dowager. Before she finished her words, Grandpa Luo suddenly interrupted her. No. Old Master Luo roared at the top of his lungs. He looked at Luo Qingtong angrily, and paced back and forth in front of her with his hands behind his back. There was an indescribable struggle in his heart. At this moment, Luo Qingtong's voice sounded. Grandfather, there's not much time left. If you don't want to, we can find a guard for Empress Dowager. After all, she saved your life. Chapter 677. Okay. Luo Qingtong looked at him and said with a smile, then I'll take you there, grandfather. Old Master Luo nodded with great difficulty, and then couldn't help but ask, Qingtong, you really can't cure it? He really couldn't take advantage of someone's perilous state like this. But he couldn't bear to see Yanxi with someone else. Old Master Luo's heart was extremely tormented. Really? Luo Qingtong nodded vigorously. She really couldn't cure it. What if she cured her grandfather? Would he continue to have unrequited love? This was a rare opportunity. She didn't know who the assassin was, but it was definitely a godly assistant. Let's go, grandfather. I'll take you there. Otherwise, if we delay for too long, I'm afraid there will be problems with Empress Dowager Yanxi. Thinking of what his precious granddaughter said, if they didn't find someone to cure the poison in a quarter of an hour, the poisoned person would become irrational and abnormal. Old Master Luo's expression turned cold. Yanxi was the Empress Dowager of Great Chu. If someone saw her like that, wouldn't it be terrible? Thinking of this, he immediately urged his granddaughter, Qingtong, quickly take me there. At this time, Old Master Luo didn't care about being embarrassed. Okay. Luo Qingtong's eyes were smiling as she directly led Old Master Luo through the heavy guards, all the way into the inner hall where Empress Dowager Yanxi was. In the inner hall, after Yanxi ordered everyone to retreat, she quickly felt the discomfort around her. She gritted her teeth. Drops of cold sweat suddenly appeared on her round jade-white forehead, and the redness on her cheeks was obvious. Damn it, that knife was poisoned. And it was a very strong poison. Yanxi secretly hated herself for being affected by Luo Tong's matter. Otherwise, with her temperament and strength, how could she fall into the other party's trap? Those people had purposely smeared love poison on their swords to deal with her. The assassination was fake, but it was real to poison her and ruin her reputation. If she guessed correctly, it was Ning Wang's group who did it. In order to completely pull her down from the Empress Dowager's throne, she had taken so many precautions and done everything she could, but it had all been ruined by that man. Luo Tong, it's not enough that you hurt me once. This time you want to hurt me again. Yanxi's breathing was heavy and her face flushed. thinking that she was distracted by Luo Tong's matter and fell into someone's trap. She felt a burst of anger in her heart. Unable to suppress the boiling hot aura in her body several times, Yanxi knew that the love poison she had been afflicted with was no small matter. In an instant she was furious. "Luo Tong, you bastard." As she spoke, she pulled out the jade hairpin that she carried around with her and threw it on the ground. At this moment, a crisp like a silver bell. "Grandpa Yan, Empress is she calling?" While speaking, Luo Tong and Luo Yan and Luo Yan S. Seeing Empress Dowager Yanxi's weak and powerless appearance, Old Master Luo's heart was instantly shocked, and he hurriedly came to help her. Chapter 678. You don't touch me. Yanxi's eyes were already misty. The effect of the poison was so amazing that she could barely control herself. "Get out of here." She pointed at Old Master Luo and shouted. At this time, Empress Dowager Yanxi had no time to think about how Luo Qingtong and Old Master Luo passed through the heavy guards and entered. Her only thought now was to make this man leave quickly. She would never show such a disgraceful state in front of him, and she would never let this man touch her. Seeing Empress Dowager Yanxi like this, Old Master Luo felt a burst of heartache. He took a step forward and said, "Shi'er, I know you hate me, but you've been poisoned now. If you don't stop, you won't be able to bear it." Old Master Luo didn't say that Empress Dowager Yanxi would lose her mind and become extremely greedy. He was afraid that Yanxi wouldn't be able to bear this stimulation. She was the Empress Dowager of Great Chu. She should be high and mighty and calm. Just take it that he took advantage of her perilous state and took the opportunity to attack her. If she wanted to hate someone, she would hate him. Thinking of this, he suddenly gritted his teeth and strode towards Empress Dowager Yanxi. "Stop right there." Seeing him coming over, Empress Dowager Yanxi's heart was in a panic. She didn't want to have anything to do with this man anymore. She hated him and would never forgive him. Swish! Yanxi raised her hand, and a dagger was instantly placed across her neck. "Luo Tong, if you dare to take another step forward, I will die here." Empress Dowager Yanxi panted heavily, but the hand holding the dagger was extremely stable. She had been wrong once before, and she wouldn't make the same mistake a second time. "Shi'er." Seeing Yanxi's movements, Old Master Luo's figure froze in an instant. At this moment, Luo Qingtong's surprised voice suddenly sounded. Grandfather, what is this? Did you carve something? Your name is on it." As Luo Qingtong spoke, she picked up the green wooden hairpin that fell on the ground. She saw that wooden hairpin as soon as she entered the inner hall. After all, it was too conspicuous for such a crude wooden hairpin to appear in such a gorgeous and exquisite place. Only that silly grandfather of hers, who had placed all his attention on Empress Dowager Yanxi, would not have noticed such an obvious thing. Luo Qingtong's voice sounded. In an instant the two of them looked over. Then, Empress Dowager Yanxi's face stiffened, while Grandfather Luo's face was full of surprise and disbelief. "Jadewood hairpin?" Looking at the jade hairpin in Luo Qingtong's hand, Grandfather Luo was pleasantly surprised. He looked at Empress Dowager Yanxi in disbelief. Hadn't she already thrown away this jadewood hairpin? It was embedded in the floor of that remote and deserted courtyard, and couldn't be dug out even if one wanted to. Why would he appear here? "Shi'er, it's you. Did you pick it up? Do you still have me in your heart?" Grandpa Luo asked with a trembling voice. Empress Dowager Yanxi gritted her teeth, desperately resisting the waves of heat and feeling in her body, not answering a word. At this moment, clang! Her hand seemed to be hit by something, and the dagger in her hand fell to the ground in an instant. Then Luo Qingtong's voice sounded with a hint of laughter. Chapter 679. As she spoke, she pushed Empress Dowager Yanxi into Old Master Luo's arms and stuffed a pill into his mouth. "Grandpa, eat this, there's a surprise." Luo Qingtong winked at Old Master Luo and pushed him forward. Rumble! As Luo Qingtong struck out, a crack suddenly appeared in the wall in front of Old Master Luo. "You!" Empress Dowager Yanxi was shocked. She looked at Luo Qingtong in shock. The entrance to this crack was the secret passage she had built. It led to the place where she usually cultivated in seclusion and outside the palace. No one knew about it except her. How did this young girl know? Who was she? Before Empress Dowager Yanxi could figure it out, her figure had already disappeared into the gap with old Master Luo's figure. Grandpa, I can only help you this much. Good luck. Looking at the two figures disappearing in front of her, Luo Qingtong's smile was indescribably evil. The pill she had just given old Master Luo could temporarily restore his strength and appearance when he was young. The rest depended on her grandfather's strength. But now, she still had to help her grandfather keep an eye on them so that they wouldn't be disturbed. In fact, Luo Qingtong had hidden something from old Master Luo. That was, what Empress Dowager Yanxi had been poisoned with was not an ordinary aphrodisiac, but a kind of aphrodisiac. The name Flower Burial Soul was simply made up by Luo Qingtong. In fact, Luo Qingtong had never seen this kind of aphrodisiac before. It seemed to be newly developed by someone else. But Luo Qingtong had an eye technique. At that time, with the smell in the air and the poison on the assassin's knife, the female lead instantly analyzed the medicinal properties and effects of this drug. This kind of aphrodisiac was very fierce and insidious. Most of what Luo Qingtong said to old Master Luo before was true. It even reduced the efficacy of the drug. In fact, this was a kind of sexual poison. Not only did it require a man and a woman to be together to release the poison, but it also required a man and a woman to be together. Moreover, she needed more than one man to do it. Otherwise, there would be no way for the effects of the medicine to dissipate. And this kind of lust, the more suppressed it was, the more intense it would be. In the end, the poisoned person would go crazy uncontrollably, lose their rationality, and finally rush out to rape the man. Of course, with Luo Qingtong here, the poison in Empress Dowager Yanxi's body had long been weakened by her. Grandfather Luo alone was enough. This was to give Grandfather Luo a reason to feel at ease. Otherwise, Luo Qingtong would have directly gotten rid of him. However, since those people had poisoned Empress Dowager Yanxi, there would definitely be follow-up actions later. The biggest possibility was that he would come to the inner palace to catch them in the act. Luo Qingtong couldn't let them disturb her grandfather and Empress Dowager Yanxi's happy occasion. As Luo Qingtong thought of this, the bloody light in her eyes flickered. In the next second, she raised her hand. The medicinal materials in her spatial ring were taken out by her. She held them in midair, kneaded them into balls of medicinal liquid, and then fused and refined them. However, in an instant, a ball of venom appeared in her palm. The aura of the poison was similar to the aphrodisiac in Empress Dowager Yanxi's body, but the medicinal effect was many times stronger. Chapter 680. Especially the person who refined this poison. Luo Qingtong's eyes narrowed slightly. She could feel that the poisonous liquid was very fresh. It was less than a day ago. In other words, the person who refined this poisonous liquid might still be in the holy capital of Great Chu, hiding behind the person who wanted to harm Empress Dowager Yanxi behind the scenes. Luo Qingtong didn't mind using her own means to teach the other party a lesson. At the same time, she could also vent her grandfather's anger. Empress Dowager Yanxi of Great Chu was her grandfather's sweetheart. If she hadn't arrived today, wouldn't her grandfather be heartbroken if something happened to Empress Dowager Yanxi? Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong's eyes flashed fiercely. Hurting her grandfather was hurting her. Let's see if the person behind the scenes could bear her revenge. Whoosh! Luo Qingtong spread out the medicinal liquid in her hand. In an instant, a stream of aura dissipated in the inner hall, integrated into the light pink poisonous fog that Empress Dowager Yanxi had forced out before, and spread everywhere. In an instant, it covered the entire inner hall. Whoosh! After doing all this, Luo Qingtong's figure flashed and directly jumped to the top dome of the palace. She hid in a blind spot, ready to watch the show. While Empress Dowager Yanxi was poisoned, outside the imperial palace of Great Chu, in a luxurious royal mansion, a guard hurriedly entered the main hall and reported to King Ning, who was sitting in the middle of the hall, in a low voice. "Your Highness, news from the palace. The matter has been done. Good. Hearing this news, King Ning, who was talking to someone in the main hall, was suddenly overjoyed. He suddenly slapped the table and stood up, laughing loudly. Haha. I didn't expect that woman to really fall for it. I've long seen that her recent state was not right. After trying today, it really succeeded. Haha. He raised his head and laughed, then looked at the white-robed man sitting in the hall and said, This time, it's all thanks to the help of the heavenly doctor. If it weren't for the help of the heavenly doctor, I'm afraid it wouldn't have been so easy to succeed. However, Your Excellency Sacred Hand, is there really no problem with the medicinal liquid you mentioned? Is that lust poison really so strong that it can't be stopped? He narrowed his eyes as he looked at the white-robed man. You should know that Yanxi is not weak at all. There's no lack of experts in the palace. If Ning Wang wanted to pull Yanxi down from the Empress Dowager's throne, he would definitely ruin her reputation and make her unable to make a comeback. If the aphrodisiac in her body was cured or suppressed, then this matter would be difficult to handle. Your Highness, don't worry. I can guarantee that no one will be able to cure the medicine that I've refined. The white-robed man's face was hidden behind a blank mask. At this moment, he was looking up at King Ning. His voice was hoarse and deep, revealing absolute confidence. Good. Haha. King Ning laughed and walked out. With Sir Sacred Hand's words, this king is relieved. Everyone says that evil Dr. Ghost Eye's alchemy skills are unparalleled. In my opinion, it's because she hasn't come to the Holy Dynasty yet, and hasn't faced Heavenly Dr. Sage Hand yet. Otherwise, she can't be compared to Your Excellency at all. She's just a person who came out of the Blackfield sub-city. Who knows where she got those pills from? If she really refined them, why would she hide the head and show the tail? King Ning said, his face full of disdain. Chapter 681. At this moment, a maidservant beside the white-robed man snorted coldly and said, How can that evil Dr. Gui Tong be compared to my master? Her words were full of arrogance and disdain, as if comparing Luo Qingtong with the white-robed man was a great insult. Ting Qin. Hearing this, the white-robed man immediately reprimanded in a low voice. The maidservant immediately stopped talking. Haha. Your Excellency Sacred Hand, don't be angry. Your maidservant is right. Comparing her with you is really an insult to your status. It's my fault. Prince Ning laughed loudly. I'll immediately lead my men and gather a group of important officials to enter the palace and request an audience with the Empress Dowager. When he said this, the smile on his face instantly turned cold, becoming abnormally gloomy and icy. After all, the Empress Dowager was attacked by an assassin. As officials, we should be anxious and be doubly concerned. After he said this, he immediately strode out of the room. Your Excellency Sacred Hand, please wait here. When I'm done, I'll definitely reward you handsomely. All right, then I'll wait for Your Highness to succeed. The white-robed man stood up and congratulated him. Ha ha ha. Prince Ning led his men and left. Looking at the departing figure, the white-robed man tapped his index finger. Then, he suddenly waved his hand and set up an invisible comprehension boundary around himself. Kneel. The white-robed man's voice was cold. It was the voice of a young girl, completely different from the low and hoarse voice from before. Yes, Your Highness. The maidservant called Ting Qin also knew that she had said the wrong thing. The moment the white-robed man spoke, she immediately knelt down. Do you remember what I said before? You have to be careful with your words and actions outside. Don't let others discover your identity. The white-robed man's voice was slightly angry. Your maidservant also feels wronged for Your Highness. That evil Dr. Gui Tong came out of nowhere. How can he be compared to Your Highness? Your Highness used to be low-key and kept a low profile. Otherwise, how could that evil Dr. Gui Tong have the chance to become famous? And even more impossible to be appreciated by the Blackfield's Ming Zun. The maidservant called Ting Qin said, This servant feels injustice for His Highness. That kind of person is not worthy of Your Highness' reputation. Enough. The white-robed man sat down, his voice indifferent. Since you know that she's not worthy to be mentioned in the same breath as me, then don't say anything more. A person with an undeserved reputation will naturally give himself away. Don't worry about it. As she spoke, she raised her hand and took off the mask on her face. Looking at Tingqin, she said, "On the other hand, have you found out anything about the Tianyu Empire? Why did evil Dr. Gui Tong want to destroy them? In addition, what's wrong with Luo Qingtong's eyes?" The white-robed man's voice was cold. The face she turned to look at was that of His Highness Feng Yuan of the Great Yong Sacred Dynasty. "Your Highness, we're still investigating what happened in the Tianyu Empire. We don't know the specific reason yet, but it should be related to the Luo family," Ting Qin reported in a low voice. "Evil Dr. Ghost Eye may have some relationship with the Luo family. Luo Qingtong's eyes should also be cured by her." "Oh, is that so?" Feng Yuan's eyes narrowed. "Then the person who investigated my identity, fought with me from a distance, and used poison to injure me, was it also her?" Feng Yuan's heart froze. That was the first time she had lost in a competition of poison techniques. The other party had used her own poison, which was a great humiliation. However, whether or not the other party was evil Dr. Gui Tong was still up for debate. Feng Yuan did not think that evil Dr. Gui Tong had such strength, because from the information she had obtained, evil Dr. Gui Tong seemed to be a weak youth whose gender was hard to distinguish. Among people of the same age as her, it was impossible for anyone to have such strength in poison techniques. Chapter 682. I don't know. The other party was very secretive. We haven't found out who did it yet. At that time, Luo Qingtong had used Luo Xining to lure him out. Who would have thought that the Luo family and Luo Qingtong, who was only in the martial general realm at that time, could kill a martial royal realm expert? Feng Yuan's men were investigating in the wrong direction. Many experts went to the Nine Magi Mountain, including Ming Zun, so we couldn't find the culprit. Qin reported. There are no traces of the black field?" Feng Yuan's eyes drooped, and her eyelashes fluttered like butterfly wings. When she mentioned the black field, a hint of jealousy appeared in her eyes. That black field Ming Zun. If she had known that he would appreciate the evil Dr. Ghost Eyes because of her amazing medical and alchemy skills, and protect her under his wings, she would have become a heavenly doctor long ago. There was no need to painstakingly seek an audience with the other party, and in the end settle for the next best thing, Yuanma. In the end, Yuanma didn't know how to appreciate her kindness, and refused to break off the engagement. As the princess of the Great Yong Dynasty, she naturally couldn't be entangled with a man who was already engaged. Even if his body constitution was compatible with hers, and would benefit her greatly, it was impossible. But she couldn't take this lying down. In addition, she heard that Yuanma's fiancé had a pair of strange eyes like her. Thinking of the various secrets and benefits that his pair of strange pupils might involve, Feng Yuan naturally had someone pass on the news that he had feelings for Yuan Mo to Yuan Shua. She didn't have to worry about what happened next. But she didn't expect that the Luo family, a family from a low-level country, would be fine after being attacked by the Tianyu royal family. And Luo Qingtong even survived Yuan Shua in Luo Xining's scheme. Moreover, that pair of eyes that should have been crippled were still fine, but it seemed that her eyes were similar to her own, and they were gone. And there seemed to be something wrong with her newly recovered eyes, as they were often filled with a faint red color. Unfortunately, it would be better if he was blind. However, since the other party was fine, Feng Yuan didn't bother to deal with the Luo family and Luo Qingtong. Not to mention, the Luo clan might be related to the evil Dr. Ghost Eye. Feng Yuan did not want his actions to fall into the eyes of the most honorable man in the Black Field. Feng Yuan felt a burst of joy in his heart when he realized that the other party wasn't heartless, but rather that the method he had used was wrong. If the heretic physician Ghost Eyes could attract his attention and protection, then he, a heavenly divine physician, could do the same. Feng Yuan's heart pounded violently as he recalled the man's handsome face and terrifying strength that he had caught a glimpse of back then. Only such a powerful man was worthy of her. Only an outstanding woman like her could stand shoulder to shoulder with him. Within the entire True Spill continent, only she was worthy enough to match him. Evil Dr. Ghost Eye and him, from the beginning to the end, did not belong to the righteous path. She would let that man know that only she was the most suitable for him. No, Ting Qin said respectfully. Good. Feng Luan's smile was cold and full of confidence. Let's wait here for the Great Chu to change. Messing with the harem is immoral. Even if the Great Chu's Empress Dowager, Yan Shi, is more capable, she can't escape unscathed this time. Without her, the Great Chu will be mine sooner or later. King Ning will also be my puppet sooner or later. When the two dynasties merged, it would be easier to deal with the other two dynasties. At that time, the entire eastern region would be her world. Chapter 683. Great Chu Imperial Palace. After Ning Wang went out, he gathered a group of important officials and men, and headed to the Great Chu Imperial Palace. The important officials who were called out by him were all a little surprised, not knowing what he was thinking. The assassination of the Empress Dowager was blocked, so not everyone could get the news. Your Highness Ning Wang, what is the matter that requires you to lead your men into the palace? An imperial censor asked with a frown. He looked at King Ning with suspicion in his eyes. Leading the troops into the palace, did Ning Wang want to do something? But seeing him gather his men, it didn't seem like it. The imperial censor suppressed the doubts in his heart and asked in a deep voice, waiting to see what Ning Wang would say. Hearing his words, the other important officials also looked over. Imperial censor Ma, are you suspecting that I have bad intentions? Prince Ning sneered as he looked at the censor who spoke, as well as the ministers who were looking at him. These people were guarding against his usurpation every day, but they didn't know that he had already succeeded. Now he was going to take them to witness that moment. Yan Shi, that woman, had messed up the harem. At that time, let's see if these people still had the face to control the court with her and guard against him. The world of Great Chu would be his sooner or later. No, it should be said that when his imperial brother, the late emperor, died, the throne should have been his. But Yan Shi, that woman, interfered and helped one of his imperial brother's bloodline to the throne. He didn't expect that woman, who had been silent in the harem all these years and had never had any sense of existence, would be so iron-blooded and outstanding when she stood up. He had forcefully suppressed all of his arrangements. Together with the group of old officials left behind by imperial brother, they were able to completely suppress him. Even when he was so close to obtaining it, he still failed at the last step. Now he wanted to see how Yan Shi, that woman, would face these old officials of the late emperor. Would these people still have the face to stop him from ascending the throne? Ning Wang sneered and said, I received news that the Empress Dowager was assassinated in the palace and is now in seclusion. I don't know if something has happened. I am worried about the throne of Great Chu, so I naturally have to lead people to the palace to investigate and see what the situation is inside. Is it already in the hands of the thieves? But you also know that this prince has always been at odds with the Empress Dowager. Since I'm going to the palace, I naturally have to bring all of you along, lest others say that I'm plotting against you. But I didn't expect that even if I called you all, you would still doubt my sincerity. King Ning said righteously. However, only he knew what the truth was. The matter of Yan Shi messing up the harem was already set in stone. Bringing these important ministers along was naturally to let them witness all of this with their own eyes, and then completely beat Yan Shi to the bottom of the valley. And these people were the people he arranged in the palace to deal with Yan Shi. The latter's own forces were pretty good. There were many people in the Great Chu royal palace. If Ning Wang wanted to find fault with Yan Shi, it was naturally impossible for him to not bring people into the palace. What's more, Yan Shi had been opposing him all these years. Ning Wang already hated her to the core. It wasn't easy for him to succeed in his scheme this time, so he naturally had to completely eliminate the source of trouble. These people were not only to deal with Yan Shi's men, but also to prevent the other party from escaping. Today, he wanted Yan Shi to never be able to make a comeback. Chapter 684. What? The Empress Dowager was assassinated? Everyone was shocked when they heard the news, especially Censor Ma, who questioned King Ning. He didn't care about the sarcasm in King Ning's words and hurriedly said, Then let's go to the palace quickly and see how the Empress Dowager is doing. The Empress Dowager being assassinated was a big deal. If something happened to her, no one in the whole Chu could stop King Ning. When the latter succeeded the throne, the whole Chu country would be overturned. Those who stood against King Ning from the beginning would have no way to survive. Thinking so, the group hurriedly followed King Ning to the Chu imperial palace. It wasn't that no one thought that this assassination might be King Ning's doing, but the Empress Dowager's safety was more important. At this time, no one cared about this. Good. I'll take you into the palace now. King Ning's eyes were gloomy and proud as he led the group to the Chu palace. Because of the presence of a group of important ministers, the group entered the palace almost unimpeded and arrived at the inner hall, where Empress Dowager Yanxi lived. Your Highness King Ning, ministers, the Empress Dowager has ordered that no one is allowed to approach the inner hall. The guards outside were loyal to their duties. When they saw King Ning leading a group of ministers, they immediately stopped them outside the square. Humph! The Empress Dowager was assassinated, and you people still want to hide it. Now you want to stop us. Don't you know that if something happens to the Empress Dowager, you can't escape death? Get out of my way. Prince Ning had brought his men into the palace for this very moment. He looked at the inner hall square that was guarded by many guards and surrounded like an iron bucket. He couldn't help but sneer in his heart. With such a strict defense, that woman Yan, she really fell into the trap. She might be in the inner palace right now, and who knows how many men she's with. Empress Dowager Yanxi of Great Chu should naturally be admired by everyone. With that thought in mind, he sneered and waved his hand. Immediately, the group of people behind him rushed out and pushed aside the group of inner palace protectors in front of him. Your Highness King Ning, those guards in the inner hall were forced to retreat step by step. They wanted to attack but didn't dare to. After all, Prince Ning pretended to be concerned about the Empress Dowager and had a group of important officials behind him. They couldn't convict him of harboring evil intentions. However, the Empress Dowager ordered them to guard the place to the death and not allow anyone to enter. Immediately, the group of people fell into a dilemma. Prince Ning sneered as he led the men behind him to close in, forcing the guards in the square of the inner palace to the gate of the inner palace. Looking at the closed door and seeing that there was no sound from inside despite such a big noise, the sneer and complacency in King Ning's eyes became more intense. At this moment, Yanxi probably couldn't care less about these things. She didn't know if the men she called in could satisfy her. If he couldn't, he still had people here. Bring it to her now. Thinking of this, King Ning suddenly shouted coldly, "There's no movement in the inner hall. You bastards! If the Empress Dowager's treatment is delayed, and something happens to the Empress Dowager's body, this prince wants your lives." As he spoke, he ordered sternly, "Kick open this door for this king." Boom! Chapter 685. 2. Ning Wang followed a group of private guards who had rushed into the inner hall, his face full of pride and arrogance, as he wanted to see Yanxi's ugly performance. However, as soon as he entered the inner hall with a group of private guards from the prince's mansion, his expression changed. In the hall, there was no scene of Empress Dowager Yanxi entangling with men as he had imagined. On the contrary, it was quiet and empty. There was no one. How could this be? Empress Dowager Yanxi clearly entered the inner hall and didn't come out. Since the assassination, his men had been keeping an eye on this side. This information couldn't be wrong. Prince Ning's face was cold, and he soon realized that there must be a secret passage in the inner hall. Humph! Yanxi, that woman, thought she could hide in this way? Prince Ning sneered in his heart. He waved his hand and was about to order his private guards to search the hall. Anyway, the reason was ready-made. The Empress Dowager disappeared after being assassinated. Who knew if she was kidnapped by thieves? As courtiers, they naturally had to worry about the world first. For the safety of the Empress Dowager, they would sacrifice their lives for her. Thinking so, he was about to speak. At this moment, he suddenly felt that something seemed to have changed in his body. Prince Ning was shocked in his heart. He felt that the waves of fire in his body were surging up fiercely. The The surge of this heat wave was so familiar that Prince Ning's face changed in an instant. Oh no! It's that lascivious poison. Damn it! There's the lascivious fog forced out by that woman Yin Shi. Prince Ning was flustered and exasperated. He didn't have time to think about why there was such a strong lascivious fog in here. He turned around and was about to fly out. However, he just rushed in too impatiently. Because he was afraid that others would stop him, he left a group of important courtiers behind. Once he was done admiring Yin Shi's ugliness, he would call those people in and make an impassioned speech, ruthlessly humiliating this group of people. Let them see what kind of lascivious virtue the Empress Dowager, Yin Shi they supported was. But at this moment, this arrangement became an obstacle for King Ning to fly backward. In front of him was a group of private guards who were clearing the way for him. Behind him was another group of private guards who were blocking the important officials from entering. On the contrary, a group of impatient ministers were stuck at the back. The gate of the inner hall was only so wide, but King Ning had brought a lot of people with him. As a result, he was sandwiched in the middle by a group of private guards that he had brought with him. Get out of my way! Sensing that the aura in his body was getting out of control, King Ning bellowed furiously. Just as he desperately wanted to rush out of the inner hall and grab a few servant girls to vent the anger in his heart, the group of guards in front of him could no longer bear the toxicity of the aphrodisiac and directly pounced on him with red eyes. That was right. Luo Qingtong added something to the poison. Originally, the poisoned person would randomly grab people like a rabid dog and use the medicine on them. However, the medicine had been changed to target a specific aura, and this specific aura was naturally designated by her. Crossing her legs and lying on her back on the picturesque beam of the dome of the inner hall, Luo Qingtong retracted her fingers. She had just flicked the medicinal aura on King Ning's body. Just let him enjoy this arrangement. And the surprise was not only that. Thinking of the person who had hidden behind King Ning and refined the aphrodisiac, Luo Qingtong's lips curled up slightly. Chapter 686. Wait! Stop! What are you doing? Get out of my way! Prince Ning, who had intended to shake off the guards who were blocking his way at the entrance of the main hall, was suddenly pounced on by the guards who had rushed into the inner hall. The eyes of the guards were red. Under the influence of Luo Qingtong's modified lustful poison, they tore at Prince Ning's clothes like wild beasts. Stop! How dare you? How dare you? Prince Ning was shocked and angry. He struggled with all his might, trying to shake off these guards who dared to offend him. But he was also poisoned by the lustful poison, and the more he suppressed it, the more intense it became. Luo Qingtong did not change these effects. She wanted to give them a taste of their own medicine. As soon as Prince Ning used the strength in his body, the lustful poison instantly spread all over his body, making him almost lose his mind. The breath around him also leaked out suddenly. Bang, bang, bang. Before Prince Ning could react, he was pressed to the ground by a group of guards who were panting heavily. Among the layers of figures, only a corner of his python dragon robe could be vaguely seen. Then it was quickly torn into pieces by the group of guards. Your Highness! Seeing this scene, the private guards of the prince's mansion, who had yet to enter the inner hall in time, were shocked, and were about to rush in. But at this moment, with a bang, the main door of the main hall was slammed shut. A stern shout was suddenly heard from within. How dare you? Ning Wang, is this how much you care for this consort? You rushed into my inner hall with a group of guards who had been poisoned by the lustful poison? Are you taking advantage of the fact that I was injured during the assassination, so you can humiliate me as you wish? Do you want to let these people in, humiliate me, and then put the blame on me? How dare you? Empress Dowager. Suddenly hearing this voice, the people outside were instantly stunned, especially the ministers who had entered the palace with Prince Ning and did not know what had happened. They cried out in surprise. Empress Dowager, are you all right? Luo Qingtong sat on the beam with a satisfied expression, her eyes slightly closed. Hearing Prince Ning's miserable and painful cries, she imitated Empress Dowager Yin Shi's voice and said coldly, How can I be all right? It's someone else who's in trouble. All of you, get out of the square of the inner hall. Especially the people of Prince Ning's mansion. Kill anyone who dares to make a move. This consort wants to see what kind of show Ning Wang has prepared for this consort by bringing this group of people over. Yes, following Luo Qingtong's voice, the inner palace guards outside said in unison. The reason why they had been suppressed by Prince Ning's was that the latter had forced them to give in the name of Yanxi's safety. Since the Empress Dowager didn't say anything, they naturally couldn't fight with the people brought by Prince Ning. But it was now. The Empress Dowager had spoken in person. A group of people instantly poured out from both sides of the inner hall like a tide, driving out the private guards who were blocking the entrance of the inner hall. A group of important ministers were also invited to a side hall outside the square to wait. After doing all this, Luo Qingtong raised her eyebrows and slowly hit her fainting acupoint. She did not look at the scene below, and directly closed her eyes to rest. Chapter 687. King Ning's blood-curdling screams lasted for 4 to 6 hours before it stopped. After Prince Ning's screams stopped, Luo Qingtong yawned and let people in under Little Pig's reminder. They carried Prince Ning, who had already turned into a pile of meat paste, with not a single part of his body intact. His entire body was covered in all kinds of dirty liquids, and he was taken away by the private guards of the prince's mansion. As for those guards who were lucky enough to have sex with the most powerful prince of Great Chu, Luo Qingtong's lips curved slightly. In the name of Great Chu's Empress Dowager Yanxi, she directly issued a decree to confer these people the title of prince's husband and send them to Prince Ning's mansion with great fanfare. What else could a man who had sex with a prince be if not a prince's husband? Luo Qingtong would not let this matter pass so easily. Prince Ning wanted to treat it as if he was bitten by a dog. How could this work? Since he schemed against Empress Dowager Yanxi, Luo Qingtong naturally wanted him to reap what he sowed. But it was not enough for him to reap what he sowed. Luo Qingtong also wanted him to feel like a fishbone was stuck in his throat, and his reputation was ruined. From now on, he could no longer compete with Empress Dowager Yanxi, let alone have any ideas about the throne of Great Chu. Was a prince who had sex with a man still qualified to compete with the emperor for the throne? Prince Ning wanted Empress Dowager Yanxi to defile the harem and lose his reputation. Luo Qingtong made him suffer all of this. She also completely destroyed his hope. More importantly, she wanted to make use of this matter to give a big gift to the person who was hiding behind Prince Ning, who had refined this obscene poison. The other party had better not be in Prince Ning's mansion. Otherwise, this good show would be worth watching. Bang! In Prince Ning's mansion, Feng Wan, whose face was hidden behind a blank mask, suddenly turned to look at Ting Qin, who was kneeling beside him, and said coldly, "What did you say? It didn't succeed? Empress Dowager Yanxi was not poisoned? Instead, Prince Ning and his guards who went to find her were poisoned?" "Yes." Ting Qin lowered her head. "Your Highness, according to the news we've received from the palace, that is indeed the case. Empress Dowager Yanxi seems to have forced the poison out of her body, so she is fine, but Prince Ning and the group of guards who entered were poisoned." As they listened to Qin, they didn't dare to look up at Feng Wan's face. His Highness had always been meticulous in his calculations. In the Great Yong Sacred Dynasty, it seemed that the emperor was in charge, but in reality, His Highness had long controlled everything. His Highness's words were more effective than the emperor's decree. This was the first time they had lost in Great Chu. No, it seemed that His Highness had already failed to deal with the Luo family and Luo Qingtong. The people they thought were dead for sure didn't die. Instead, the royal family of Tianyu was annihilated. Impossible. Feng Wan's voice was cold. She suddenly flicked her sleeves and sat back down on the chair, slamming her hand on the table. "Unless you have my unique antidote, it's impossible to force it out." Not to mention that Empress Dowager Yanxi of Great Chu was able to force him out without any injuries. This was absolutely impossible. "Someone detoxified my poison." Feng Wan's voice was cold and certain. "In Great Chu's palace, there are alchemists who are not weaker than me, and even alchemists." At this point, She suddenly waved her hand heavily. Bang! In an instant, Ting Qin, who was kneeling in front of her, was sent flying by her wave of her hand. Chapter 688. Feng Wuan's expression was cold and furious. Originally, she could have used this opportunity to pull down Empress Dowager Yinxi through Prince Ning's hands. Without Empress Dowager Yinxi, with Prince Ning alone, Great Chu's sacred dynasty would be in her hands in less than 3 years. Great Chu's tens of thousands of miles of territory would also be incorporated into Great Yong. Now such a good plan had failed at the last stage. Empress Dowager Yinxi of Great Chu was fine, and they would definitely be more vigilant in the future. And with Prince Ning's matter exposed, who knew what would happen this time? His identity was equivalent to being half crippled. It would not be so easy for him to make a move on Great Chu in the future. Thinking of this, how could Feng Wuan not be angry in his heart? Just a little more. The time, place, and people were clearly in the right place, and they were all gathered. She ought to have succeeded. Bastard! It was all this group of trash. Your Highness, please calm down. Ting Qin covered her injured chest and crawled back to Feng Wuan, kneeling on the ground again, and said repeatedly, Your Highness, we have investigated. There is indeed no one comparable to Your Highness around Empress Dowager Yinxi of Great Chu. Moreover, that poison was specially refined by Your Highness to deal with Empress Dowager Yinxi of Great Chu this time. Even if there is such a person in Great Chu's sacred dynasty, they can't cure Your Highness poison for the time being. That delay is enough to make Empress Dowager Yinxi of Great Chu lose her mind. At that time, we can add another crime for her to the harem. Your Highness, we have calculated everything. We never thought that it would fail. Ting Qin said while lying at Feng Wuan's feet. She did not dare to say that all this was planned by Feng Wuan himself. He even came here personally. Whether their information was wrong or not, how could His Highness not know? There was indeed no such person around Empress Dowager Yinxi of Great Chu. His Highness was finding an excuse for his own failure. Ting Qin did not dare to say more, and could only defend herself and blame it on an accident. Feng Wuan was extremely angry now, and his face was cold, and he did not speak. At this moment, a cry suddenly came from outside. Your Excellency's sacred hand. Please come and see Our Highness. King Ning was sent back miserably. There wasn't a single piece of unharmed flesh on his body. He looked so miserable that it was as if he only had a single breath left. In particular, a certain hidden place was almost completely rotten. Seeing Prince Ning like this, the people of Prince Ning's mansion naturally rushed to invite Feng Wuan. After all, this was the heavenly divine hand that the prince treated as an honored guest. It was said that he could defeat the evil Dr. Ghost Eye. Feng Wuan felt disgusted when he heard this. Prince Ning was so miserable now, and he still wanted her to treat him? She didn't want to dirty her eyes. Let's go. Ning Wang no longer had any value, so Feng Wuan was about to leave. She could come and go as she pleased in Prince Ning's mansion. Naturally, no one stopped her. However, Feng Wuan and Ting Qin had just walked not far from the gate of Prince Ning's mansion. Behind them, a series of shouts suddenly rang out. Prince! Your Highness! Feng Wuan's face was cold, and she did not even turn her head. She only thought that those people of Prince Ning's mansion were unwilling to let her leave, and wanted to ask her to treat Prince Ning. Let the doctors of Prince Ning's mansion save such a disgusting person themselves. However, just as she thought this, in an instant, she was pushed down heavily from behind with a bang. Then a disgusting smell suddenly came from the person she was pressing down on. Chapter 689. Your Highness! Ting Qin cried out in alarm. The others didn't know that she was calling for Feng Wuan, but the latter heard it clearly. She subconsciously wanted to shake off the person who was pouncing on her body. However, just as she was about to move, she found that her strength seemed to be affected by something. The aura in her body instantly stagnated, and in an instant it dropped rapidly. Something's not right. Feng Wuan's heart froze. Mixed poison. She felt that her body seemed to have been poisoned, causing her strength to be unable to be unleashed for a moment. The strength of the person who was pressing on her body was extremely tyrannical, as if he had been strengthened. Your Excellency, save me. Quickly, quickly detoxify the poison in their bodies. Ning Wang, who was pressing on her body, was so terrified that his voice trembled. As ruthless as he was, he didn't expect that one day, he would fall into such an unbearable situation. He had just woken up from his coma, and when he thought of his encounter in the palace, he almost fainted again. The dignified Ning Wang, who controlled the Wei Ning army with one hand, almost covered the sky with one hand, and almost succeeded in changing the dynasty. Who would have thought that one day, he would be pressed under countless men? Thinking of that disgusting memory, Ning Wang hated that he couldn't tear the person who caused all this. However, before he could finish vowing in his heart, the palace sent another batch of people. It was those private guards who caused him to be in such a miserable state. What made Ning Wang even more terrified was that the poison in their bodies had not been detoxified. Yes, at that time, it was he who asked the heavenly doctor to prolong the effects of this poison. This way, he would have more opportunities to set up calmly, and could also see more of Yan Shi's ugliness. But Ning Wang didn't expect that in the end, all of this would be retribution on him. Your Excellency, Heavenly Doctor, I beg you, quickly detoxify the poison in their bodies. Or detoxify mine too. Ning Wang was about to go crazy. Those guards who were poisoned didn't look for anyone but him. If this went on, he was afraid that he would be raped to death by those guards. How could the dignified Prince Ning accept such a humiliating and disgusting death? Seeing those guards who had been conferred the title of Prince Consort pounce at him with bloodshot eyes, Prince Ning ignored the injuries all over his body and scrambled to escape. Your Excellency, Heavenly Doctor, please, quick. This poison was refined by Feng Wuan, so Ning Wang could only come to her. However, the moment Feng Wuan was pushed down by him, he discovered that the poison in his body was no longer the poison he had refined before. The toxicity of the poison had been modified. Although it was still his own poison, the toxicity had been increased by too much. This familiar technique caused Feng Wuan's heart to shudder violently. However, the change in Ning Wang's and her aura was what made her the most furious. She could feel that the poison in Ning Wang's body immediately changed after coming into contact with her. And this change was the source of the mixed poison. Bastard. The person who changed the medicinal properties of the aphrodisiac he refined actually allowed the aphrodisiac to interact with the original poison in his body, causing a new change to occur. Another extremely powerful and tyrannical poison was formed, suppressing the strength in his body. How did the other party do it? Feng Wuan was furious. She didn't pay attention to Ning Wang's words and hurriedly detoxified the poison in her body. Chapter 690. No. Feng Wuan's expression was ugly. After trying several detoxification methods, she couldn't temporarily detoxify and relieve the poison in her body. Right at this moment, the group of private guards who had been blocked by Prince Ning's guards arrived. They looked at Ning Wang and Feng Wuan on the ground with red eyes and rushed over like wild beasts. There was no other way. This group of people were the prince's husbands personally conferred by Empress Dowager Yan Shi. The guards of the prince's mansion could stop them for a while, but they couldn't kill them. Under their frenzied attacks, they finally managed to catch up. However, when they saw Feng Wuan rolling with Ning Wang, the expression and light in their eyes changed. The eyes that were originally staring at Ning Wang like hungry wolves shifted to Feng Wuan. The latter looked at their eyes and sniffed the poisonous aura emitted from her body. The expression on her face suddenly changed. A second mutation. The lust poison in those people's bodies was changed by someone and only reacted to a specific aura. Now that aura, after the aura on Ning Wang's body mixed with her previous aura, changed and transferred to her body. The other party had calculated to such an extent. From the moment Ning Wang and these so-called prince's husbands were sent back, it was a trap. When Ning Wang returned, he would definitely come to her for treatment. The poisonous aura on his body mixed with the aura on her body when she refined the lust poison, creating a new kind of poison. At the same time, this kind of poison suppressed her cultivation and also created a new kind of inducing aura, making the eyes of those princes' husbands, who were sent back, turn to stare at her. Layer by layer, step by step, the other party had thought of so many things. Moreover, this arrangement of sending the princes' husbands back could completely destroy Ning Wang's reputation. This was killing several birds with one stone. The person behind the scenes who designed this tit-for-tat play was so scheming and powerful. Was it Empress Dowager Yanxi? Feng Wuan's mind turned quickly. At the same time, she directly raised her hand with a cold face and poked several major acupoints on her body, risking the loss of her strength after this to activate the forbidden technique. With a bang, she pushed Prince Ning off her and was about to rush out of Prince Ning's mansion. However, Ning Wang also saw at this time that the gazes of the poisoned private guards were no longer on him. How could they let Feng Yuan go? Since the other party wanted to escape, there was no way they could cure the poison in their bodies. Looks like this heavenly doctor sage encountered an even more powerful opponent than her. In that case, if the other party left, then wouldn't he be the one to be ravaged next? Thinking of this, King Ning's face turned ugly. After being lifted by Feng Yuan, he clenched his teeth and panted heavily as he ordered the prince mansion's guards around him. Stop this heavenly doctor for this prince. Don't let him step out of the prince's mansion. Since the other party was unable to detoxify the poison, he would take his place and fight against the poisoned private guards. Activate the mansion's protective array. Prince Ning's voice was harsh and harsh. This heavenly doctor's poison technique was very powerful. He was afraid that the Wang mansion's guards wouldn't be able to stop him. After all, even if the other party couldn't deal with the poison in his and the private guards' bodies, it didn't mean that he couldn't deal with the prince's mansion's guards. Buzz, you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.